Story structure. This one's going to be the most difficult for me to speak to because I'm a very unstructured writer. But I'm going to tell you what I do, and I don't recommend it, especially not for your first book. And then I'm also going to link a bunch of articles and resources for you to read because there's tons of amazing stuff on structure out there already. This was the first series I ever wrote. And I actually wrote the second book first. And then I went back in time and wrote the first book, and then I wrote the third book. But the entire story, I don't even know, it's probably like 300,000 words or something. The entire story started, second book, toward the end. This woman, the main character, Charlotte, she's cooking in this man's house. It's an older gentleman that she helps take care of. And she's chopping something. I think she was making lasagna, but it's been like 10 years, so don't hold me to it. She's chopping something with her back to the door, and she hears somebody come in, and she says, "Oh, I hope you're hungry." And a different man says, "Starving." And like it just sends an electric shock through her. Like she wants to stab this person and like climb on top of him at once because they have this like crazy past and she's shut him out of her life and now he's back. Like that scene in the kitchen is where this entire thing started. And from there, I was like, how did we get here? Why does she hate him so much? Well, of course, he cheated on her because, that's why we hate people so much. Lovers, anyway. So that's not really what I would recommend you do. I think you should have a better idea of like where the story's starting, where it's going, what is this major conflict, how are they growing, how are they changing, how do they interact with each other, all those things kind of before you get started would be a big help. So at the very basic level for structure, you're going to need a beginning, middle, and end. And I know that sounds like I'm teaching second grade, but you would not believe how many stories I read that don't really have a middle or don't really have a great ending. So, you're going to have these characters in their normal lives. Something's going to happen to change it. They're stuck in an elevator, it breaks, there's a bomb, one of them's kidnapped, the aliens land, like there's going to be this inciting incident, something's going to happen. Then there's going to be all this rising action. Everything's going to change for everybody. They're going to be like, there's going to be conflict, there's going to be challenges they have to overcome, there's going to be things that come up, they're going to have little wins and big losses. It's going to keep going and going and going until we get to the climax of the story. And then the action's going to fall and we're going to, tuck our reader in and let them have an ending. It doesn't have to be a happy ending. They don't have to win. They should grow or change or overcome something in the process. That's kind of stories that generally people connect with and like to read about. If you're writing literary fiction, all that goes out the window though, because there's, literary fiction writers, which I am not one of them. They write about like the leaves changing and the water under the bridge and, man's thoughts on life. And so you guys can do structure a little differently. If you're doing genre fiction, just those general best-selling fiction books, things have to happen. They need to happen kind of in a logical order, and it has to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. So think about that as you're plotting it out, and don't do what I did. Also, and by the way, I'm going to make the next one probably the exact same way, because as structured as I am in my real life, like my gift is strategic planning, and I make my own calendars, like plan. For some reason with writing, I don't plan at all. But if you are a planning person, this is actually a workbook by Anne Garvin, Plotting Your Novel. And like literally you go through and fill out like a worksheet, history, backstory, timeline. So if this is something that's available on Amazon, you can, work through it. I thought about doing it, but honestly, it gives me anxiety. I don't know why. It's something to think about. I don't know. But I know this is going to help keep a lot of you from having anxiety. So keep that in mind. This is the week we're kind of looking at story structure, trying to figure out where we're headed. Good luck.